Morning, everybody. Welcome to the April edition of Office Hours. Today, we're going to be going over locations, preparing for locations and how to work with them. We've talked about locations before. I think there's another Office Hours up from last year that we've talked about that I usually recommend to everybody and have them go look at when they're having questions about locations. Locations is one of the trickier things, or can be one of the trickier things in collective access, mostly just because you kind of have to be paying attention to what you're doing. It's not just like straight entering a field. You have to kind of make sure you've got it laid out how you want to do it and kind of go from there. The one thing I want to talk about first, and this is kind of for new groups coming in and also for groups like migrating. So new groups starting fresh with nothing and groups migrating in that have collections to clean up or locations to clean up. It was one of the things that we had to do at Fairfield. One of the things that we loved was the fact that we can get to this anywhere. And I will always say I don't recommend working from home, but after we got going on it, the librarian and I would like sit home in front of the TV at night and just like fix our locations because it's slightly time consuming, but once you get going, it actually ends up going pretty fast. And it will only help you down the road and help your staff and help future records and all that. If you want to know how it can be a pain, I will continue to throw Nick at Wilton under the bus and the locations and his system once he moved that are really kind of all over the place. And he just hasn't had a chance to get to them. So I continue to like use him as an example. And he's got like 3 different spellings of like the doll room or Betsy's doll room or stuff like that, that now it's kind of a wait, which is going to be the preferred. And you know, it's mostly him and a lot of volunteers. So they know what they're doing and what areas they're talking about. But, you know, it's something to think about forward, because if you go on vacation and someone wants to find something or they're training a new volunteer, you want to make sure it's very clear where everything is. So let me share my screen with this one. And as usual, we're going to be hopping back and forth between the sandbox and between Fairfield's site. So there's a couple live, you know, we can play in the sandbox, and there's a couple live things that I can show you in Fairfield as examples. So when thinking about your locations, both for new and for cleaning up, think of it as, this is stuff that I've covered, but just to kind of review, think about it as you're giving somebody directions on how to get to something. So don't be overwhelmed by you have 5 buildings and 30 rooms or a huge storage area and all these different places. I'm kind of looking at you, Charlotte, who's Housatonic too, for some of this, because yours are going to be really actually kind of fun to do. You know, think about like you're giving location to somebody like directions. Where is this widget? Okay, what you want to do is you're at the main museum building. You want to go into the main storage area. You want to look for area E. Okay, now you want to go down and find range 8. So E8. Okay, you want to find that, and then it's going to be on shelf 3. So it's very much a hierarchy of how you would be explaining to somebody where something is. Break it down that way. If you're starting fresh, highly recommend just get out a pad and paper and just kind of write down where those main areas are, those main buildings are, those main campuses. Then kind of do subheadings of first floor, second floor. Then you can get into other areas and make sure you're giving the down to the detail. You can go down to the box level on this. And I love having a box level because especially I've got a lot of boxes that are still packed from our mini collections moves at Fairfield, and they just kind of live that way off site. So if I'm looking for something and I go back and know that it's in FHS 163, I can get to FHS 163. I can also take that entire box, move it back to the museum, and know that it's there if I ever need to get to it. And when I'm done, I can move it back to offsite storage without having to move the 30 objects that are in that box. When you move that box, all the items that are in it will go with it. So how do we get to locations? And I'm looking at my notes so I don't forget to tell you guys anything. So honestly, the easiest way is just go into, you can go down here. I don't have locations in this part, that's right. You can go to objects if you just want to go through objects. Go to find storage locations. You don't even have to click on basic, advanced, or anything like that. And it'll go to your storage locations module. You will start out here in search storage locations, which lets you arrow through your hierarchy of locations. So this hierarchy in the sandbox is some of that like test fake data that came from Fairfield. So there's a lot of Fairfield locations in there. If you want to start your editing on something, just click on a specific location and you'll see that it'll change up in the corner to editing. So now you're in the editing part of it. So you can go in and make changes as you need it. You can still arrow through and look at your hierarchies and move through and see what everything is. As with any of the hierarchies, if you've got a little arrow and you click that, that means there's more items below it in the hierarchy. If there's a little dot, that means that's it, that's your location. A couple notes, I have done unknown for some things. This lets me put in things that I know it's in the collection. I've either seen it or seen it in recent photographs or seen recent references. But I may not like actually know exactly where it is right this second. So I have put in, as I'm entering a record, because I want to make sure I'm tracking it, to go in and I'll put in unknown and then enter location unknown at time of entry, just for my own information. Along with that, I do have missing. And that is for items in the collection that I know are legit missing. It's something that we want to track. We haven't deaccessioned it, but we know it was either stolen or it's not been seen since a move and we legit have looked and can't find it. So we'll put that in as missing so that you know there's an issue with it. As with anything, there is always a notes field in this module. So add as many notes and explanation as you want. Okay, so as you're starting to think about your locations and your areas, and this is not set in stone when you put it in, you can move things to other things. So if you decided that, so I have Ogden House here, this is our offsite historic house at Fairfield. And you'll notice that I have an offsite section. Say I decided I wanted to say that Ogden House was in the offsite category. Right now, the offsite category consists of basically our Commerce Drive offsite storage location. I also have kept a couple of our obsolete offsite storage locations in because that is useful information for me to track. And that was migrated over from when we did our first migration in 2016. But I have added the little tag of obsolete after it so that people go in and they'll know that that's not an active location. So if I wanted to decided that I wanted to move Ogden House under the offsite and have it in this list, I could. So if you decide that something doesn't make sense or you want to create another subcategory, that's fine to do. Right now for us, and I'm going to use Fairfield as an example because we have a couple different building locations. I've also got, I've got the main Fairfield Museum and History Center collection here, which consists on this of main storage and a couple other things. The offsite storage here, I've got Ogden House. Also on our area, we've got Sun Tavern, which is a little building across the way, and Victorian Barn, Victorian Cottage. So there are collections in those spaces as well. So it's good to put things in. I have a loan category. I don't really use it that much, but you can, possibly, especially if you want to do like a long-term loan for something that's, you know, a yearly renewable annual thing that you just want to make sure to note this is on loan. There's other ways to get to that, but kind of your decision. So as we're going through, so we'll go to Fairfield. We have our main storage location, and let's just look at what we have below. So you'll notice I'm clicking on this, but it still says Ogden House OH. This is one of the really fussy things about locations for some reason. Like it's in the bold, so you think you're on it, you're not actually in it yet. And also you see up here in the top left, location is still showing up as Ogden House. So if you click on main storage, now you're in main storage and you can edit this. And I've said it previously, it sounds funny. It's partially a muscle memory thing, like reassuring your brain thing. I will left click like extra firmly on the section that I want to be in. It doesn't do anything except to just kind of firm it in your mind, like, oh, I want to be in main storage. And then you'll see it up here, and that's fine. It doesn't do anything, just in your head. If you don't have to do that, great. I find it worked well for me, especially sitting in front of the TV, like making changes and stuff. Okay, so here's our main storage area. We've got it split into, I was going to go down below here. So the name is main storage. For a location identifier, we've just put in MS. If you want to continue to use main storage spelled out as your location identifier, you can. The identifier is much like an accession number, like a box identifier, that kind of thing. And then any notes of explanation you can put down here at the bottom. Record status, use that if you want, especially honestly, if you're just starting and migrating stuff in. Usually everything automatically goes in as new, which is good to keep, because then you can just go through and make sure as you go that editing is completed or the whole thing is completed. Yes, I approve this location. It's where I want it to be. It's fine. That's kind of more of a workflow thing for yourself. I will give you an example of notes. We're going to go to Ogden House, and we're going to go to the North Chamber. So we're in North Chamber, and I've made sure to put on the notes here. On the second floor, from the front view of the house is on the left side towards the cemetery. This is really useful for people who either aren't sure where something is in the building. North Chamber may not mean anything because it may not be clear what direction north is in for this. I'm good with direction. I honestly get the north and south sides of Ogden House mixed up all the time. And it's taken me a while to get it straight in my head. I think it's kind of catty corner too, which isn't helpful. But this like reminds me in my head, oh, okay, that's the one on the cemetery side. Okay, that's fine. This is also really useful if you've got odd names in your buildings, like Betsy's room, the children's room, the doll room. 10 years from now, Betsy has gone off and moved to Bora Bora. No one knows who Betsy is anymore. So it's not going to make any sense to them that that's Betsy's room. You can still, if you really want to, call it Betsy's room. But if you decided to go to more traditional naming, like North Chamber, second floor, bedroom, something like that, you can still make a note down here to say this used to be known as Betsy's room. And that'll help people locate stuff, especially if they're finding old references to say, oh, this worksheet says it's in Betsy's room. What the heck? They can search for it and it'll still come up. It'll search the notes field. But it'll be a little bit more, make a little bit more sense up here. So let's see. Make sure I'm not missing anything before I go on to the next bit. Okay, so as you're going through, this is also, if you want to change names as you go, you totally can. If it makes sense to you, figure out, you know what, we don't want to call this Betsy's room anymore. We do want to call this the north bedroom. Then you can go in and change it from here. So I wanted to make sure this is main collection storage. I can. I may not want to change the identifier, but I can just type that in, click save. It'll cycle through. and very slowly today. And it'll come up as that. Very important thing to watch out for as you're going through, and this is on that, make sure you're in the right location and checking before you enter stuff, is to make sure you're there, because there were numerous times both the librarian and myself changed location names in the early days before we realized we were just not in the right location for this. So it was just like an odd thing that we're like, oh shoot, where did this location go? I completely lost it because we changed the name of it accidentally. So that's another reason to just make sure you're in the right location or the right field that you want. So now I'm calling this main collection storage, Bristol MS, that's fine. And we don't really need any notes at this point in time. So if you only go into main collection storage, so our collections divided into different areas, E, F, there's A, B, C. This is awesome. There's different things below this. If you go farther down the section, you'll still see a lot of, oh, actually, wait, hold on. Let me get back to the sandbox because I'm actually wanting to be there. I thought that looked too neat because I was actually in Fairfield. All right, so. Caveat, bar mansion, FMHC, main storage. Okay, so here's our sections, A, B, D, F, E. These do not automatically alphabetize themselves. So if you need to move something, you can move it, but you need to move it and click save every time you do, which is a little bit of a hassle, but it's, it goes pretty quick once you're in and doing stuff. So this is where I've got A range, B range, F range.
So how do you move? I'm sorry, Diane. So how do you move it? Just physically drag it?
Nope, we're getting to that right now, actually. Excellent question, Scott.
All right.
So, because actually there's an easier way to do it. I know you might have been one of the people that wanted this, and I know there was at least 2 other users who were like, can't we move a bunch of stuff at once? Yes, you can now. I literally just learned this the other day from my counterpart in Minnesota. So this is one reason I'm really excited about doing locations today. So you notice here, so part of your question is yes, drag and drop it. The other question is bulk moving to a different level. So I've got A, D, F, D. When we first migrated, we had all of our loose shelving and sections were under here. And this is where we had wanted to create whole ranges and kind of nest them within the right range. So I don't currently have an E range in here. So what I'm going to do is start at the level that I want to add to. So see, I just clicked on it lightly and it didn't change. So now I just went in and made sure that it changed. So now we're in main storage. I want to click add because I'm going to add a level. I don't want to add a new room. I want to add a unit under main storage. So make sure you have the right thing here. And it's whatever you want to call it. If you want to call it position or rack or unit or wall or whatever, that's fine, whatever you guys designate for that. So we're going to hit the plus button. And now I'm going to enter E range. And you'll notice it automatically puts the location identifier here, and it will also warn you that it's already in use 3 times. So I'm just going to add to this and make this E. Range E in collection storage. And basically this is where I want it to be, so that's fine. I'm just going to make that complete. So we're going to save this. So now under main storage, now we've got E range. So this is part of your question, Scott. To move it, yes, click on it and just drag it up to where you want it in the location. If you've got a bunch, sometimes it can be a little bit of a hassle, but make sure it's here. This is where you want to click save. If you do not click save every time you drag it up, it won't keep it if you try to do a bunch of things at once. So now this should keep it in this range. So now is the bulk moving part. This is the kind of new cool thing. So I've got all these E's here. I want to put them underneath this E range. Now you can't really drop it up to get into that like you can in the computer with like folders in the hierarchy in a like a document drive or something like that. You want to actually make sure you're nesting it under that. So if you're clicking E here, actually, sorry, click move first. So now we've got, and I don't know if anybody's noticed this in any of their moves, all these little checkboxes. They randomly appeared, oh gosh, probably a couple months ago, because very often he'll do updates to the system, or the system will get updated, but they won't tell us about it. They just kind of like appear. So you can move multiple things at once. So it'll say, click on an arrow to choose location to move this record under, but I also want to click some other ones too. So I want to do another E. Anything with an E, I want to move under this E range. Not the F. We'll do a couple other E's. We'll stop at this B. So now it says click under the arrow for this, or under the thing. So we want to go main storage to arrow over. It'll be moved under main storage. No, we're already there. So we want to click under B range arrow. And you'll say now to be moved under, oh, I'm sorry, it was E range. Moved under E range after the next save. So this little red is super helpful because it'll tell you what it's doing before you click save. So we've got all of those selected to move to E. Now if you click save, it'll go through and you get an error warning or an error. So just try saving it again, and it usually works. So now when you click E, you notice that all of these E's are now under the E range. So if you wanted to go through and put them in order, you can. So I can drag like 3 up here, save. This is where the like a little bit tedious, but it doesn't take as long as you think it would once you get going. So click save. And if we look under our main storage thing, you'll see, okay, all those E ranges are moved down to like that BO2 where we stopped. So I'm going to do it one more time just to like make sure this will be, it's one of those, like it's easier to do and see it done than to try to like describe it and read it. So I'm going to do a move, and this is just to make sure you know what's clicked when you're doing it. So right now our E's in E range are there. We don't want those. So we're going to unclick that. Go back to these E's that are floating loose down here. And then we're going to go up to click on this next. So I didn't click on the little box, and it will differentiate between the little box or the main name. So now we moved under E range after next save. Let's see if we get the error again. Weird, I'll have to ask them about that. So saving again. So now we've got even more in our E range from before, and there's a bunch missing from here. So it makes it useful to move either a bunch of boxes or like reorganize after you've migrated. If you decide that the contents of this room and the boxes on this wall are going to be moved to the boxes on the other wall, you can go through and individually check them off and go from there. I don't know if I've got any, I don't have any offsite stuff on here, I don't think. That's old offsite. So I'm not going to worry too much about that. Anybody have any questions about that at the moment? And feel free to speak up because I can't see everybody on my screen. So I just got.
No, that was helpful. That was helpful to show that move, Diane. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah. I literally just learned about this on Friday when I talked to Anne. She was like, oh, you know, those little check boxes? I'm like, yeah, what's up with those? She's like, oh, I found out what they're for. I'm like, oh, okay. So super helpful. This is why you also talk to your colleagues in other states that are working on the same project. Okay, so we did that. Okay, so now I want to talk about home locations. Home locations have existed for a little while, but they were definitely not, but by a little while, I mean like a year, maybe a little bit more. It's something that I had wanted for a long time, and it was another case of like they showed up one day, which was kind of fun. So we're going to go to this one. I will go to Fairfield for, because I have a really good example for this. I'm going to change my main collection storage back though, before I forget. So bear with me for a second. Okay. So if you click, actually, let me go in this way and just go to like a bunch of collections from the home screen or the main landing page. So on my accounts, this is what I have for objects. And I've got a display up with current location related storage. One good thing I can do first is back in the sandbox, go into objects. And we want to move, let's say this, or let's see where this trivet is. So previously, when we first started the system, there were two options for your locations. It was either a permanent location or a temporary location. As a collections manager, like permanent location, never liked that term. And it's just a term, but I never liked it because I'm like, there's a difference between a home location where something usually goes back to and a permanent location. This is never, ever going to be moved ever again. It's just a weird semantics kind of thing. So now we have home locations. So you'll see up here, your current location is listed. This trivet is at Ogden House on the first floor in the kitchen. So this little button, actually, let me go to location first. So this should be currently what your location tab looks like. If it does not look like this, let me know. This was something that we made sure that everybody's on the same thing within the past year. A couple systems didn't have this view. It's just like one little click of a button. But I like it because it gives you the history of where things are. Just looking at the location page really quickly, there's this location hierarchy up at the top. It also should be normally closed. When you click on the little arrow, it expands it. This is actually related to its location in a collection hierarchy, which is usually meant to be like an archival collection, because we don't really have a hierarchy for objects necessarily, but in an archival collection, you'll have a hierarchy, and this will kind of give you the location of where it is. It's not as useful with objects, so I have usually set everything to automatically be enclosed so it doesn't pop up. So if that doesn't look like that in your system, let us know as well, and we can tweak it. Automatically, the object use history will be shown and expanded, and the related storage locations. So right here in the history for this, if you click, it'll just show you with a date of any of the locations for this. This has only ever been recorded as being at Ogden House in the kitchen. So, and that's basically its home location. It's staying there. It's not really going anywhere. If we did a lot of changing around at the Ogden House, I would say temporary location or something, but that's fine. So I'm actually going to click this button. Home location is not set. Oh, one other thing quick. You'll see this update location here. If you have a home location set, you'll see another button that says return to home location. If you don't have a home location set, it won't show up. So we're going to set a home location. You can either search up here and say we're going to go Ogden and see what our options are. So we're going to go first floor, kitchen. So it's not selected yet, much like the other one. So select it to be sure. And now your little red location will be set to first floor on save. So we want to click save on that. So now you will notice that over here, it says Ogden House first floor kitchen, and I'll have a little bracket saying home. That's the home location for this object. You'll notice there's still no return to home location because it actually is in its home location. So that's fine. Now, because this was not a thing when we migrated, I've been going through slowly but surely, and as I land on things for exhibitions or something else, I make sure to put a home location in. That'll be something going forward that I'll find out for people doing migrations. If they can transfer things in as home locations, and whether the institution wants it to be a home location, or if you want to go through and create that yourself. That'll be something to think about. So we are in the sandbox. This is where I want to go back to Fairfield, and I want to look for one of my exhibitions, because this is something that I noticed getting ready, and this is the one I want. So this is over an exhibition I've got from the ground up, which is back in 2019, 2020. So I want to go into this because I can get to my related objects from here. I realized, and I know I've done this a few times, because you get done with one exhibit and you're on to moving with something else, and you may not be able to go tidy up your records. I realized when I was getting things ready for upcoming exhibition changeover that I've got a lot of stuff that's still listed as being in from the ground up. So if you go into this hand Cornhusker, and I've got my reports set up this way. If you want to do any reports that set up locations in a specific way, let me know. If you can't get it to look like what you want, I can help you with that. So we're going to click on the sheet to get into hand Cornhusker. Here's my little Cornhusker, and it's showing the current location as being in from the ground up. And that was a 2019 exhibit, so I know that's long down. So just for kicks, we're going to go in. There's no other location set up here. I'm going to go look at, other little side notes. Sometimes, especially on a laptop, this little scrolly bit down here gets really tiny. It even gets down to like one option, and it's really annoying. I don't know why it does this, but if you click on the little information and then close the little information, now you can see all your options down here. I would like to be able to bypass that and have it automatically show up. We're working on that. So now I can go down to location. So when I look at this, I've got hand Cornhusker. I don't need to see the hierarchy for this guy. Down in related storage locations, I've got a couple of different ones, and I want to see the history of it. So it was put in ground up. It had been in the GE building offsite. Then it was moved to Commerce. It was in box FHS 93. Then it was put in the exhibit. And sometimes I will have made a note that it was returned to its home location if I didn't have a chance. I know this was, and I know it just needs to get updated. So since it does not have a home location, what I'm going to do first is create its home location. And I know I want it back into FHS 93. So FHS, it was 093. Okay, yep, that's my location. We're going to make sure and click on that so it will be moved to this, or it will be designated as the home location. So click Save. When you create a home location, it does not automatically get moved there. So you'll see over on the left-hand side, you've still got current location as being in the exhibit, and that putting something in an exhibit space relates to what your dates of the exhibit are. So it started at a certain time, so this automatically got moved to being in from the ground up. So, but now you'll see that the home location is listed as this. So we want to return it. Oh, look, now here's our return to home location button. One of my favorite things in this system. And sometimes it does take a second for the system to work through and note that that's now the home location. So I'm kind of stalling a little bit. So I can go through and just hit the return to home location button and it's fine. So if I go back to my locations. Now what I've been using is the standard date because I did not record when this got brought back because the exhibit went to like almost the end of January 2020. I've just been saying this was moved by January 30th, 2020. So when we go into return to home location, effective date, you can do now, and it'll just show up in the history as being moved today. But you can put in 1/30/2020, click Save. So now we have up here in the current location, it has now been moved to back to its home location. And here it's showing the current location. And when you look in the history, you can still see where the exhibit falls into all this and the fact that it was moved back to offsite January 2020. So we can.
And this is Scott.
Yeah.
This is Scott. This may be an out of turn question, but
no, I know you guys have a lot of like location concerns. Yeah.
Yeah. So in that related storage location section
Yes.
that you got on the screen
Yes.
now.
On the bottom down here.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
It seems like when you move things, the default is to say it's permanently located at.
You can change that in your own system to only be temporary located at, but when you add something up here with the update location, it does automatically make it permanently located. I'm trying to figure out how to make that a choice. When you're down here and you add a relationship, so if you just clicked, and I've been doing this a lot because I've been moving things temporarily to our library, staging it for the exhibition. So I'm going to say library here. And when you click on that, you should see a little box down here that you can choose is temporary or permanently located at.
Right. Yeah.
So,
that's the sort of thing to do. I mean, it's sort of, if you're moving things temporarily, it makes sense that they're all temporary as opposed to defaulting a permanent move. You've had
yes, exactly.
that thing that moved permanently 5 times, and that's probably not the intent. It was all temporarily moved around. Yeah. Okay.
Yep. Yeah. So, I mean, that was something that I don't think was set initially. Even when you guys came in, I don't know that that was set to be changed, or it automatically defaults to something. So if yours is somehow automatically defaulting to only permanently, let me know and we'll look at it. But if you're adding it here in this little bit and adding to this list of related locations, you can choose whether to make it temporary or permanent. If you're adding it up here in this bit, it will only currently add it as permanent. So just know that going in. That's the only different thing to adding it up in that section versus in that related storage locations area. Okay, let me just cancel this guy so I don't move him accidentally. And some of these old ones, these permanently located at, that's a result of the old migration. When we first came in, it just by default moved it permanently to that. So, which at the time was fine because we're kind of considering it that in a way. And that's how it should have come, should have been for that. Because most of our, in the grand scheme of things, when we get a gorgeous new storage building that we can put a lot of stuff in, all of these things at this offsite storage will be temporary, but I mean, for the moment, it's kind of permanent. This is where it kind of goes back to. And this designation at the home will say it will have this over here. So let me see. Let me go to the next one. Okay, this poor little guy is also still in from the ground up. Let me skip him for a second and go over to something else just because I know. Where's my little fish thing? Just so it's kind of cool, and I do need to put it back where it's going. Here's all my objects from that location, and you'll see this is currently temporarily in there, is in the library right now, because this is waiting to go into the next exhibit. Oh, let's move this guy, because I know this still shows up as being in there. I'm going to put this down now. I'm going to still blame COVID for this since this closed like right at the beginning of COVID and going into another exhibition. So this guy, in my locations, and because I know where stuff's moving from and where it came from, I know that we had recorded at the time that it came from box FHS 352. Oh, and look, I left myself a lovely note saying it was returned off site in this date, which I'm just going to copy that for now. And this still has it here. So I'm going to make the home location FHS 352. And you can name boxes whatever you want. I have this system just because I still have all these boxed things from a few moves, and a lot of the boxes just still have those stickers on them, including stuff at our main building. So I'll have stuff that's labeled, Silverware 1, Silverware 2, Silverware 3, but then I have all these that are FHS whatever. And I find it's a really useful number for me to use. So I've continued to do that. So now this guy, oh, I copied this, but I'm just making sure. So we're going to return the home location. We actually did it on this date. So sometimes this is when the it takes a second to go through the system to like designate it as the home location, because I didn't stall as much that time or click around. So we'll give it a second to catch up to itself. Now let's try return to home location. No, it still doesn't like it. So I need to give it a second still. The other thing is too, sometimes if you've moved something in the meantime, this isn't the case with this one, if you've moved it somewhere else, the latest date will be what shows up as current location. And I can't give you, unfortunately, like a time frame of how long it takes to kind of kick through. You just know that it's going to be a second. Now, let's get this. I was going to say, I don't know how I was back at the museum February 2020, but we hadn't been locked down yet. Okay, so now it went through. So this isn't necessarily a fault of the system or something that's broken when it does that. It just needs a second for it to kind of make those connections and change over some of those fields. But now I can see that the fish kettle's in its home location, FHS 532. And if I look in the history now, I can also see, oh yeah, it wasn't from the ground up at this point and moved back on this date. Okay, does anybody have any questions about any of this at this point? And I have been going through, as I've been moving those things back from offsite to like temporarily, I am going through and giving them home locations, moving them back to offsite, then moving them back to the museum, just so that trail is there, so we know where it was when.
Hi, this is Lisa Graydon from the Coast Guard Academy.
Hi, Lisa. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Do you have an example you could show me of an archival collection?
Yes, I can. So this is something that's still a little bit not in the works. We're coming up with a format to make sure that everybody's following. Let me go to, I'm going to stay in Fairfield just because I know what the things are in there and what I've been working on in here. So the thing with archival collections in this, I'm going to go to the Gould family collection, family papers. So this has been a point of discussion with some of the traveling archivists that are going to be working with some of you for their project. And this is like a really good example of museum tracking versus archival tracking, and how I've experienced some of this versus, proper way of doing things and all that. So do I have this here? Oh, I know what it is. So the way that I've always learned it, and this is as not an archivist, not a librarian, is more the concern about a location for things is the call number location. So this being MS6, and this is also as me currently being like fill-in reference librarian at Fairfield for a little while, and having to go find some of this stuff. So this is MS6, so I know that I can go into the back into the manuscript collection, find manuscript 6, and go from there. Right now we've got collection identifier here, basically the call number, the reference code. When you click on, oh, hold on a second. So if I do a summary, which is basically in the finding aid format in the collections, we'll have all our regular information here and go down and have collections content, basically a content list, and it'll say box 1, folder A, and all this. Currently, we've got a field right afterwards that will have this listed: MS6, box 1, box 1, folder D. As the full librarian, this is giving me plenty of information to go find something for somebody. So hopping back to,
and
yeah, go ahead.
what fields is that? The MS6 in the box one?
So right now, and I am, by the way, very open to any input from any archivists on some of this. So right now, if you go into box one, so this is a like a, in the hierarchy, a subfield. So this is actually a series underneath the collection. When you go into this, let me get back to here for a second. So when you're in the main collection, you'll see all of the headings over here, which are basically like DAX headings kind of format of your content and structure and all that stuff. When you go into your subheading of like your series of things, this changes and it just goes down to a certain amount of things. And it'll include this identifier field here, which Fairfield has been using for the location, like a container identifier, basically. There was some discussion that identifier as a field that's not what that is for. We're actually going to make a change and just make this a field called container identifier, because that's really what we want it to be. We are trying to add, I've got another one down here. So if I've got box, and this part's only on Fairfield right now as a test. So if I go, let me hop over to a folder too, just for kicks. So right now I can say that this is in box one, and then add a container, and then add a container saying folder, where am I? A, yeah. And this is kind of in case we ever need to get this split out. I find it a little clunky. Still looking for an option. This honestly works well as far as I'm concerned, because it'll show it at the end of the thing, MS6, box one, folder A. There was discussion about actual physical location. I had a long discussion with our tech guy about it. And he's like, yeah, but you don't know it's in this building, in this room, in this range, in this shelf. And I'm like, yeah, but most of the time people are concerned with where it is in the hierarchy. And if you suddenly get another 20 boxes that relate to manuscript 6, you don't want to have to move a physical location like we just did of like hundreds of boxes. That would just be horrid.
Just at the collection level is good enough, I think.
Exactly. What you can do when you're on one of these sublevels, and I've actually found this really useful for oversized items that we have in the collection that are like listed in the collection hierarchy, but like not related to where it is on the shelf. There is a related storage location option at the bottom of this. So if I have an oversized box, I can say that it's in main storage, and it's in main storage, it's in range, whatever, and I can give it like an actual physical location, more like files, something like that.
So I recently added a archival collection to CT collections, and I really struggled with trying to figure out how to get it on there with the locations, but it's interesting. I had an intern and she kind of figured it out. I'd be happy to share it with you.
Love to see it.
I'm just curious. I'd like to go back and watch this again and compare kind of how we're doing. I know this isn't necessarily what we have right now, but just a good kind of,
one of the things about this field, like it was showing up where it needed to be and it's worked for us. One of the things that honestly we haven't even done is been consistent with how we've put something in. So sometimes we have MS6, comma, box 1, comma, folder A, or we've had MS6, :1, A. There just needs to be some consistency. I think, as long as your institution knows what it is, it doesn't matter if Joe Researcher is like, I need this thing, I don't know where it is. You're like, no, I know where it is. That's fine. I'm the one that pulls it anyway. So
no, we've kind of done those similar things too. So it's a learning process.
It really is. I mean, I'd like to kind of flesh this out a little bit more and have add like a subcontainer and have kind of a hierarchy, but then you end up with almost a location hierarchy. And basically this location hierarchy, that you have way too many archives to sit there and go through and add everything, or like you said, change a bajillion boxes. So that we're trying to come up with like a good compromise that will make the traveling archivists okay with it and kind of go from there. That's why I just kind of want to change this.
This looks great. Yeah.
Cool.
Thank
Scott.
you.
Oh, no problem. Scott, you have a question? Or your hand was raised from before, I'm not sure which.
I had a question, Diane.
Yeah.
So like when I've used collective access before, I had a location for the collection, like the shelf. Right. So like, where is MS6 in your, like in what building is MS6? Or where
so that if you did want to get, like if you had 20 buildings and you really needed to see where it is,
like
that's when you would go down and add it here. Yeah.
Okay. Range of shelves. I do like range shelf. Range section shelf, so I know where everything is.
Right. Let me get back
to
it.
The collections can be, you know, like hundreds of boxes. Yeah.
Exactly. The I don't know how. I don't think I've got a few collections in here in the sandbox. It's useful for like photograph collections and stuff. We had an ongoing conversation with when I was not collections manager at my last gig, the graphics curator and the collections manager also had this like couldn't like see the other person's thing because she had the same problem with the photographs with locations. And she was just like, no, I just want to be able to call it this box and I can give you a range, but I'm not giving every single thing an individual location on a shelf. I need it to be in a box. And she's like, well, but it's in this box. And she's like, yeah, but if I take this box of 200 photographs and move it around the corner, I don't want to go in and move all these things. So, Roger the papers. So Fairfield Founders collection. So now, interestingly, so there's not a locations part for the main collection. It's more so when you get into the series and subseries. This is something I've thought about whether it needs to be added or not. I'm of two minds because I think, like you said, it would be useful to know that it's in building B and it's in range C. But then once you know that, you don't need to go down to every single individual level. And I get a little worried about about people thinking they have to fill in a location for every little thing. For every little object, for every little scrap of paper, no, it's going to be in a box and it's going to be in a hierarchy once you've got your collection sorted in a finding aid. So, but once you get down into wanting to know where the Roger Ludlow papers are, if you really wanted to put a physical location in, you can. So that's kind of something to work on too. Hi, Scott. You have your hand up again.
Yes, well, because I didn't get off of mute fast enough. Sorry about that.
I tried to pause too. What's up?
I know, I'm sorry. Just three things. One, I'll make my periodic request about whether we can get a current location to be able to sort and filter on just the current location.
So, okay, so that's weird because I know this is an ongoing request for you, and I know it's an ongoing request for me too. So I went in today. Okay. Current location is now sorts.
Oh, it does. Okay.
I don't know when that. Let me.
Okay.
Because I literally didn't notice that until this morning. I was like, "Oh, Scott, okay," really happy because it looks like it's storage.
I will
storage locations.
Yeah, I'll play with that.
Yeah,
I'll play with that. So
see.
for everybody else on the call, we use this at our art collections to help us with inventory, so we can pull up what is at a certain current location. And in the past, when you did a location search, you got it where it was and where it had been. So you had to kind of export honestly, it and manage it.
Yeah, I've not played with this yet to really see if it works well or not.
Play with it.
I would still, honestly, if you're looking to see a list of things that are in a certain location, I would still use the browse and browse by location.
Yeah, but you get like all the locations, including all the past locations are included for an object.
Right.
So
yeah, try this one and let me know how it works, because I'm actually not going to have time to look at it anytime soon. So let me know how it works and if it's something that's useful or not, and we can look at it again more.
Great. Two other things. One is, do you tend to use the loan module to identify when something's on loan rather than making a location? You mentioned at the
Yes.
very beginning.
Yeah, I tend to just say that it's on loan. When I've used the location is something that's like been on loan for a really long time.
Right, right, long-term loan, yeah.
Yeah.
But you use
let me
this loan,
think.
you lose this loan module to manage where the locations are.
Yeah.
When things
Yeah.
are out on loan.
Usually, yeah. Yeah, that'll be out. We've done, let me see. Like I've used stuff here and to say that it's more like incoming that I've had it. And so, oh wait, I know the flex break will work. Hold on. I have to fix my cache to be able to do this. Plans, flex break. Relationships. Well, actually, these info is where I'm going because I want the thing, not the object record, not the loan record, sort of. So this I've more had as, I don't even know that I had this as like a loan thing. I usually tend to just use the whole module and be able to find it that way. So yeah, so now I've got like offsite. This is more related to a location that's not in your museum or under your umbrella. And I've said that it's returned to Barnum because Barnum and Fairfield trade things back and forth quite a bit.
Okay.
I don't really use it as like an outgoing, I don't think.
Okay. Well, and one thing I just wanted to share from our experience, because we have quite a few locations. We have a lot of buildings and such.
Yes.
Yep. And we've tried. We were very fetishized on hierarching everything, nesting everything, and being very. And we found out in some areas it was too much. So I would suggest to folks to kind of manage how much information you need to give to tell somebody where something is. And sometimes you don't need to say this building, this floor, this wing, this room. I mean, because some things
north wall,
obvious,
bottom half, tucked in the corner. Yeah, if you've only got like 5 possibilities, it's like right now in the barn, in our Victorian barn, it just says Victorian barn. If you can't find it when you're in there, you need better glasses. I haven't gone to the extent of going north wall, west wall, ceiling, east wall. Like we were getting that
that far down, and we backed away from some things because we said it wasn't it was too much information and made it difficult to manage. So just a passing on experience.
No, useful piece of advice. Any questions from anybody else at this point? Oh, here's one, I think. Maybe. No, I don't have it located there. Okay, I'm going to end this part and I'll,
Diane, sorry, I just put in the chat.
Yeah.
Is there a manual you guys have created for collective access for users?
Yes.
Or do you just, okay.
Yes. It is in the midst of being updated, and I was actually literally waiting for us to kind of come to a conclusion about this collections location thing. Because there were a couple little things that need to get changed. It was that and something else, and it's this close to being done. I was waiting for those things so I could put it in, although hopefully I've got it arranged in such a way that I can now go back in and edit little sections of it without throwing the whole manual off. So once I get this part in, I'll fix that and get the other one. The other one was updated in 2021 with possibly one of the location updates and then something else. It's on the CLHO website. And it's under CLHO. If you enter projects, Connecticut collections, and it'll say like current members or something like that. And it'll be under there, just like a PDF link that you can get to it. Lots of pictures, lots of arrows, lots of circles, things like that. Hopefully make more sense to folks. Yeah. Thanks. So I'm going to end the recording for this.